Welcome to the filler episode of the series of Mirror Lake, everyone. Welcome, welcome one and all. Yeah, that was the best intro I could come up with this for this series episode, I should say. This is an episode of Mirror Lake, the Planet Coaster series, in which I build a theme park called Mirror Lake. And in this episode, we're not really building any specific ride or any, big roller coaster or anything, but we're building a few buildings and things that I feel like I couldn't really leave them out of the playlist. And so that's what we're doing today. We're not building any, I realized I was about to start a sentence, then realized I just basically said that exact same thing a minute ago. Just buildings. That's all we're doing in this episode, just buildings. We're just going to build some shops, some restaurants. Well, yes, some restaurants. Toilets, blah, 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 all that good stuff. And then next episode, we're going to get to building another roller coaster. But like I said, it would be weird to kind of launch straight into that other roller coaster without some sort of preface to that with this episode. So that's what this episode is. So with that, let's crack on, shall we? So there's a nice little bird's eye view of the park just then, but we can... I don't want to linger too much on any specific building aspect because I don't want things to drag on too much. So whilst I say this is a filler episode, I am quite proud of the things we do in it, but I don't want the specific building parts to drag on too much. I think a major criticism, and a valid one, I guess, of this series is the fact that I spend too long sort of focusing on buildings and things rather than bigger things, which is why in this episode we're just going to be doing the buildings and nothing else. But the actual buildings are going to be sort of fairly abridged. I'm not going to spend too long showing the any kind of aspect of the construction of any part of the buildings. Like now we're going to just transition into another section of the build. We're just going to finish off the tops of these shops. This is a sort of a food court area, I guess. We got a milkshake place. We've got a variety of food places, and of course a toilet block as well. Just because I was getting a lot of notifications on Planet Coaster that I didn't have enough food areas for the guests. I keep wanting to say for the peeps, but I think that's just RCT3, isn't it? It's not. Are they just called guests in Planet Coaster? I don't know. And I'm too lazy to Google, so we're going to go ahead and just call them guests. Yeah. What was I? What was I saying? I've already forgotten what I was talking about. But yeah, this is just a food court area because the game gave me a notification that many guests are thirsty and hungry and we need more places to eat and drink. So this is my answer to that notification. And this is it. If you're watching it be constructed now, obviously this is just in Planet Coaster. You don't really need seating areas and things for food court, for restaurants to be functional. But for the sake of, aesthetics and just general how I wanted the park to look, we've got a little seating area here. With nice sort of exposed windows, no glass in them, just to give us, keep the guests having a nice view of the lake, which this aspect of the actual lake itself hasn't been built yet, but this restaurant will be facing out onto the lake in the end. In the final product of the theme park, the lake actually does a sort of dog leg shape, so it goes along the waterfront area, the main front area with the emporium that you've seen in previous episodes, but it's going to loop around to flank this part as well. So that's the goal of this episode, and that was the motivation behind these buildings here. Not a lot else to really say other than just sort of watching here. I wasn't going for any sort of particular architectural style. I guess this kind of falls into the aspect of sort of a modern building where the architects are sort of trying to emulate the traditional style of the older buildings in the park. For full backstory, see the other episodes in the playlist. But I feel like most people now are kind of familiar with the backstory of this park, so I don't need to go too much into detail with that. I don't want to bore you, sound like a broken record. But yeah, at the same time, I don't want to just directly talk about what's going on screen. Like, here we are building the trying to find a flat piece of roof to finish off this this building just here, because then it's just going to be completely a redundant commentary. So, well, it doesn't matter now because I think that building's finished. So we can just ignore all of that thought process. I mean, we can add some chimneys at the end, but that's pretty much it. So we can transition now into the second building. This is going to be a slightly more focused build, not necessarily just a food court, but I don't want to say anything, don't want to spoil anything until it's all finished, just because I know, the three of you watching this will be very excited, I imagine, about, what it's going to look like. So I won't get into too much detail yet, but I kind of went to go for a sort of different architectural style to the building we just did. So this is going to look a little bit different in terms of the aesthetic appearance of it, but we're going to go for sort of a nice sort of rustic brick look. I'm not quite sure what that type of brick is. Classic brick? old brick, something brick, I imagine. But again, like I say, it's going to serve a similar purpose of just serving as a sort of shop for the guests to, you know, buy food and things. And like before, we have a nice toilet block towards the backs to just kind of to mirror what a real restaurant would have. It would have sort of facilities to wash your hands and indeed go to the toilet. Yes, but like before, we're going to be kind of building this in a fairly abridged way. I don't want to sort of spend too long lingering on any one aspect of the build. So you can see things are kind of going over. We've got a nice chief beef there, some donut store, pizza pen, and just, you know, water shop. And, you know, I don't think I really need to go into the specifics of what the actual shops are. But yeah. That was the thing. I think I mentioned it in my previous Planet Coaster video. I'm trying to get away from saying the same phrases over again, and I'm now very acutely aware of the fact I've said quite a few times in this video. So, yeah, it's something I'm trying to find alternatives to saying that, or indeed not just staying on topic and not using filler terms like yeah. But this is a process. It's going to take a while, guys. You need to just bear with me on this. You know, this is a tough time for all of us. So we'll just swiftly move on from this topic. So you can see I kind of built one aspect of the balcony, as in like one square, and then just duplicated it over and over again. We'll have to do the corners separately because obviously they don't fall into the same kind of style as the front parts of the balcony. So we didn't really show the whole thing in its entirety, but you can see I'm just kind of extending the railing and indeed the decorative brickwork at the front to, you know, cover the corners. And that's about it, actually, in terms of this storefront. So already, I think this building is coming along quite nicely. The only thing we really need to do now is just add a roof to shelter the guests from the rain. But yeah, this is a slightly more modern architectural style, I guess, to the other one. But I mean, neither of them are particularly traditional, are they? Basically, just sort of big square buildings. Though, admittedly, the other one is kind of trying to emulate an older style, kind of like a Vegas hotel, I suppose, where it's kind of built in it's there to mimic an old-fashioned style of building, but it's very obvious it was built to modern standards, I suppose, is how the other place looks and feels. I'm not quite sure what I'm trying to say with this aspect of the commentary, but there you go. Those are my thoughts on the particular building that I've just built. Finishing off the interior walls to make sure they touch the ceiling. There we go. Laying down the final parts of the brickwork. But that's that really finished for this particular building. So I think that's it in terms of our restaurant quota for the day. Yeah, obviously just finishing the roof there and just, yeah, duplicating that last part. And, oh, there we have it. So again, there was not a lot to it, but I feel like they serve their purpose quite well. So there's a few things we can do around the park. Whilst we're doing a filler episode, we may as well just cover a few other things. We can fence off the bits of the Artemis that weren't already fenced off, just to stop guests from running into the tracks for some reason. I know they're not built with suicidal tendencies in their programming, but, you know, just from a realism and indeed an OCD point of view, we can just fence them off anyway. So now I wanted to build something along the back of the park. We've got this nice big space that's not been built yet, so we can finally get around to redesigning the layout of the monorail that was originally designed to sort of serve as a way of navigating through all the different zones of the park, but eventually just became relegated to moving from the front to the back. This park's it's not small, but it's not very big. I didn't really feel like the size of it really necessitated having some sort of monorail to get guests around. So this is the final layout I went with the monorail. You can see it kind of takes this windy route around the park. I kind of wanted it to serve, kind of have a joint function of being a way of getting guests to the back of the park, but also to have it as a sort of scenic tour of the rest of Mirror Lake. Although there's not a lot to look at now, when the park's finished, there's going to be lots of trees and forests. And, of course, you guys haven't seen all of the rides get built yet, so there will be more things to look at when the guests are on the train than there are currently. But we're just going to extend that path from the fountain to sort of make this sort of loop at the back of the park where we can build some more flat rides. So the plan for now is just to build a roller coaster around here somewhere, just one roller coaster, quite a small one, and just have some more sort of flat rides and thrill rides and things like that. Well, you know, flat rides that would include thrill rides. So this one here, the Magic Carpet ride, which is I've never really built it before in Planet Coaster, and I thought this is as good a space as any to have a go at building one. I'm doing the thing that I like doing when I build these sorts of things, is having the queue line wrap around the outside of the ride, not only to make sure the queue line is quite long and, you know, make sure it doesn't end up spilling out into the main park paths, but also to give the guests something to look at whilst they're queuing. And what better thing to look at than the ride they will eventually be riding on. And then the next flat ride I decided to build was that wheel there. I thought about trying to integrate that into some sort of roller coaster so the track goes through the center of the wheel, but I couldn't really find a good place to have it. So in the end, I put it there. And then obviously the two tall rides, I suppose. We've got that, is it like a chair swing that lifts things high into the air? What's it called? Solaris Tower? Maybe? I don't know. And a drop tower as well. And then the classic ones are the Enterprise. At least it was called the Enterprise in the Roller Coaster Tycoon games. And indeed in Alton Towers, which is, I'm assuming, the one it was based on. And that's pretty much it, actually. The next episode will focus on that roller coaster that I just showed in that preview image just there that I didn't spend any time talking about whilst it was there. And now we're at the end screen, so let's talk about that without any further ado. On the left is the previous episode. On the right is the next episode. If that's not out yet, it will be a link to the full Mirror Lake playlist. Other than that, Twitter, Patreon, Discord, all in the description. And have a good day.